Welcome, I'm Darren, and I'll be your guide today as I look at two Pinnacle sets that are strangely related, 1996 Laserview and 1997 Pinnacle Inscriptions. The Laserview set was a creation from Pinnacle's effort to try to keep up with the really innovative ideas coming out of Pacific and out of Upper Deck. Now in 1995 they had created their first card that could really be viewed as kind of a cutting edge card that was really pushing the boundaries of technology, and that was Select Certified. Other than that, they were pretty well grounded in the world of conventional cards, and they were having a tough time competing with things like Pacific Crown Royale and SP, and there were some really interesting cutting edge ideas that were coming up that they were finding from other companies that they needed to be pretty much inventing ideas as well. And while in 1996 they would do Pinnacle Mint, which was a great idea, that wasn't quite enough. They really needed to have kind of the variety that they were seeing coming out of Pacific. And so for 1996 they figured out that, well, wait a minute, nobody's done a complete card set of holograms for a main release. Why don't we do that? Unfortunately for them, following 1995, Upper Deck thought, well, wait a minute, why has nobody done a complete main release set of holographic cards? So in 1996, Pinnacle released a set called Laserview, which was an entire set, a small set, that was every single card had a hologram on it. And the same year, Upper Deck released a set called SPX, where the entire set, a small set, every single card had a hologram on it. And Upper Deck had the advantage because they were used to making holograms. It was their thing. Pinnacle wasn't. So here we got to see two sets that were doing the same thing in wildly different ways. And so the results were really quite strange. They were strange because you could see that Pinnacle was really having a tough time getting this whole being an innovative card company concept. The Laserview cards they're square cards, there's no die cutting on them, and they are a full black border with a big square, and in the square is a full hologram with a full motion or a snippet of motion of the player. Usually these are pretty difficult to read, and there's kind of what looks like a rub mark around the player where you can see all of the different, all the motion, main amount of motion that's going on there. It looks like a rub mark that's actually just the way that the card is. And so it almost looks like the card is damaged in a way. The motion doesn't really come out too well on most of these cards. You tend to get like some color fades, and it's difficult to really see a lot of motion. So the card doesn't bring a lot to it. And the card back looks more like a specialty set. Not quite an insert set, but kind of like a specialty set. So right out of the gate, it was kind of a lackluster thing that they came up with. The cards also did come with a gold parallel, where basically the whole field was gold instead of silver. That's about it. And then toward the end of this 40 card set, they have a subset called Pure Energy. Here the card is a lot better. The image looks a lot bigger because the whole card is now designed in a balanced way. So the image looks better. These images often tend to look better than the main cards in the set, and these come with a gold version as well. And the card back looks more like an insert as opposed to a specialty card, but whatever. But that was the set. That was all they did for the set. There was nothing interesting about the set apart from this. But they did have two inserts, and thank goodness, because it gives us actually something to talk about. The first insert is Eye on the Prize. And here you have a basic shot of the player, just a regular flat shot of the player. And then Eye on the Prize is text, which is cut in, so you see the bottom of the image of the player. And then they have, over on the border, they have a hologram of an AFC helmet and an NFC helmet crashing together at a Super Bowl logo. That's it. That's all that they did for these cards. So here they don't have anything special, and they don't even have gold versions of these. But the only reason we're talking about this is because they did have one other insert set called Laserview Inscriptions. And this card set these were acetate cards. They have an image of the player, and then they have a border around the outside that is partially see-through. And the border has, interestingly, Denver Broncos offensive lineman for whatever reason. And then they have the inscription down below, And on the back, these cards are all individually serial numbered, or hand serial numbered, and they are serial numbered to varying amounts. And these cards were really impressive because this was not the first time that anybody had done a major set of autograph cards. That door had been opened really in 1990, but mainly in 1991 with Pro Line. And so this was a card set that was dedicated autographs. They were very special autographs, and they were all pretty rare because they had all that serial numbering on them. And this became a big chase agenda for collectors. They loved it. They loved it so much that in 1997, while the Laserview itself, I mean, there was no reason to continue. SPX had already blown it out of the water. The Inscriptions, that did work. So in 1997, they wanted to play around and make a little array of different interesting card sets, kind of like Upper Deck would do in 1999. But here in 1997 with Pinnacle, one of the card sets they created was called Inscriptions. And Inscriptions was a card set to basically cards to go along with the inscriptions. That's the whole point. But the cards in the set are done, instead of 40 cards, here it's a bigger card set, but this card set is done entirely with Dufex. And oh my word, are these amazing cards. Absolutely amazing. They have two effects that they do. One is just a mottled background behind the player with a color fade from silver down to a team color. But then also the player himself, everything on that is the effect of brushed metal. And so you get the contours of the jersey and the helmet, and the effect on the card is absolutely incredible. And the card back, in this case, it actually looks kind of cool. It looks like a Pinnacle card back, but the card back at least looks decent. But the card front it's so eye-catching. But this card set was also done with parallels. They didn't do the gold parallel like in the previous year. Here they wanted to do more what they had been doing with Pinnacle, where they had 3 different tiers. You had the base brand, and then instead of trophy, here they have the challenge collection. And the challenge collection cards, the whole background is red. And they have the player name in cursive appearing all over across the entire card back, which is really cool. But then they also have a big striated pattern of the effect of Dufex. So instead of having a mottled pattern, it's this big array that moves around, and the card is just really, really gorgeous. The whole set was done like this. And they also did a third tier, and like with Pinnacle and with Score, this third tier was called Artist Proof. Now in this case, they did go with the gold background, and the gold background here is not striated in the same way. It's a bunch of rays of Dufex and then just a flat foil. So as you look, it has kind of the sun array kind of an effect to it, a really impressive effect. And so this was the way the main card set was built. But like the previous year, they did have one subset. In this case, it was called Next Level. Now this is a much more interesting card than had been done in the previous year, and it's a little bit more interesting than the main cards in the set. In this case, they have kind of like a scratched pattern in the back with the team color. Looks great, but then when you go to the challenge collection card, it's all red with the autograph, but here the autograph is in white, so that's the main effect. But the real big difference between these two is when you go to the Artist Proof. In this case, they got the scratch marks again, and really in the main cards they also have the color fade, which is just done as a gold to black, but here they have the scratch marks behind. But then they have the full radial pattern of the Dufex, like had been in the case of the challenge cards. And the whole card set was done this way. So you have the base set entirely like this, the whole challenge set, and the whole Artist Proof set, which makes these cards gorgeous and really fun to collect. And the cards were done in a really impressive way too, because each one came in a box. This was the way that the packs were. And each one of these boxes had one of 6 different players. Inside you had the pack in just set inside, so 1 per, and so it was fancy all the way across. But this card set, of course, was not intended for the main set. The main set was basically just a wonderful gift to us as we were collecting the inscription cards. So like in the previous year, they had inscription cards. These were plastic. You had the shot in the middle, and then you had a whole the partially see-through to fully see-through down at the bottom plastic, and they have kind of like yard lines on the side. They have the name autographed down on the bottom, and then on the back, again, these are all individually hand serial numbered, each card. And it was, again, a great great chase set to collect. But they also had one other insert set that they did, like in the previous year, and this was V-Team. And this is actually kind of confusing because in 1997 Pinnacle Zenith, they had a V-Team. And so here with this V-Team, the cards are all different. In fact, they look very different. This has a very intricate die-cut pattern around it. That's the main way that you can tell the difference. Also, this has an Inscriptions logo on it. But do understand that those numbers are all V dash a number, and same thing here. It can be very confusing between the two. But the effect is, they use the same idea, which is in the middle they have a lenticular image, and the lenticular image has a decent amount of motion, and then there's the really cool card around it, very, very, very thick. This is basically what ended up happening with Sportflix, these V cards, but that would ultimately be the end of it. See, unfortunately, this was a great spurt of activity by a company that really never quite got the foundation that it needed in the sports. And so by 1998, there wasn't enough gas left in the tank, and they kind of fell apart. And so this was a wonderful gift to us that we never got another follow-up in 1998. They did intend to do a set in 1998, and they had promo cards for it. I'm pretty sure that this isn't how the cards would have come out. I sure hope that it's not. But for us in football, there was almost nothing in 1998, which is too bad. But Inscriptions didn't completely die because they basically shifted Inscriptions over to Score, and it would continue in Score as an insert there. But as far as the various weird cards that Pinnacle was creating toward the end, these two sets are actually tied together by being the foundation of Inscriptions. And in that way, it really is a wonderful little period that you can see tied one to the other. Now, I want to look at the other 1997 sets in a different video because they have a whole different effect. But these two card sets are very distinctive, very, very unique. And they are fascinating explorations of a desperate attempt in 1996 that happened to be horribly timed. And then also a 1997 set that was magnificently crafted. Other than that, I think that's the end of this video. So definitely, I love the Inscriptions cards. I absolutely love them. And if you get your hands on one of them, it's going to be a definite card you're going to love having in the collection. But if you're a collector of players or teams, that's where this really comes through, because these are wonderful, wonderful pieces of a team or a player collection. So yeah, I love the Inscription cards. So that's how I'm going to close the video out here. Subscribe if you haven't done so already. Check out my other videos. And yeah, thank you very much for watching.